or a fresh portfolio for quite a few years. What I think is interesting about this one is that you can see on the top there that they're soft cover books. They've got, you may be able to see the staples on the side of those books there. So they're our soft cover booklets. So he produced the soft covers, and at the back with the big, logo emblazoned on the front to reinforce his branding when he takes it into agencies. He produced the hardcover, the large hardcover portfolio to take into meetings and to show around physically. And he also produced it's the same content inside, but he produced a smaller soft cover version booklet of the portfolio so that he could either leave them behind or mail them out. So once again, different purposes can influence, the different kinds of formats that you might choose as well. Catalogues, these guys, you can just see it running off the edge of the bottom of the screen there. It says Linda Lyons, Lumina Collective. Lumina Collective are a great collective of female Australian photographers, documentary photographers, and they produced this booklet series to coincide with the launch of an exhibition, but they also mailed those out to potential clients as well.
So what's that, an A5 or something, or what size?
That one, yep. So that's exactly right. That's an A5 size there in portrait orientation. And, just while we're mentioning that, with Momento, we have 12 different sizes that are based on A5, A4, A3 and A2, if you would like, formats and specifications. And that is in, as you can see there, portrait orientation, landscape orientation, and square, which is based on the short side of each of those ISO standard pages.
Cool.
Next one, so to showcase your work. Some of you guys might recognise this. This is Peter Eastway's Middlehurst Middle Earth book. And I know that's an unusual angle that you're looking at there, but it is the book sitting inside the box, and we're looking at the spine there with the stitching. So what I find really interesting about this book is that Pete wasn't just showcasing his landscape photography, he was also showcasing the abilities or the incredible clarity of the Phase 1 camera. And so he chose, in this instance, if he had a camera that could produce such large images, then why not blow them up and present them in a size that does them justice? So this book was produced at A2 size and in inkjet, with inkjet printing rather than the indigo digital offset printing, because that printing did those images and the purpose of his book the most justice. And it's just interesting to see how the purpose defines the different steps.
It's a work of art on its own.
Beg your pardon?
Work of art on its own.
Oh, absolutely. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, we do have a copy in our office. So feel free to come in and have a look.
Put the gloves on and have a look.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you say put the gloves on, Tim, because we actually prefer people not to put the gloves on with that one, at least our copy, because we think that the paper and the tactile, interaction is such a big part of it. And I know that in a lot of photo book award judging sessions that judges wear gloves, but when we host ours, we're like, no gloves, unless the entrant themselves have asked us to wear gloves, because it's so much a part of the process. All right.
Are you a binder sniffer?
Sorry?
Are you a binder sniffer?
I love a judge who sniffs the pages, because they're really serious. So this is another.
Libby, can I just interrupt for a second, Tim? Rosie's having trouble connecting. She didn't have a link, and I sent hers. She's got it on the computer, but seems like she needs a password.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll send her something in the background.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Libby.
That's all right. So this is another Peter Eastway book here, and this is a fascinating one. I'm just throwing up here a few images of different books because I think they show great and varied characteristics of photo books. This one is like a reference work as well as a portfolio. So Peter's taken images from the last few decades of his photographic career and talked through, or in this case, he's written or explained, the technical details behind, but also a bit of a narrative. So you're looking here at reference and a photographic legacy. And he printed that in various formats. So he did and this is quite common now too, where you'll have your standard edition, which will be a more affordable, smaller in size edition, lower cost, and then your limited edition, generally larger in size, higher production values. And if you are interested in selling it, you can have a greater margin and a greater RRP. And on that note, in relation to self-publishing, it is the most viable option for publishing a photo book these days, if that is something you're interested in, because whether you're a major trade publisher or even an art book or illustrated book publisher, they're very risky. They consider photo books, art books, illustrated books to be very risky these days because the audience is quite small. But what I can tell you is I have seen plenty of examples of people who have self-published books in small runs. They might only be 25, they might only be 5, they might be 100, 150, whatever it is. You can successfully self-publish, and it is the most viable option in Australia and New Zealand today. And it's interesting to see the different prices that people ask for things like that. But I can come back to that more at the end if anyone is interested in self-publishing. Okay, why do we create photo books? To document a place or people or an atrocity. In this case, we're looking at a Stephen DuPont's limited edition. I'm proud to say that we do print a lot of Stephen's work. He produced this book called Locks, and Engine Blocks. It was about an African mental asylum, and his purpose for producing a book in most cases is for documentation, so that there is a record. He interestingly has decreased. I think Stephen, it's fair to say that Stephen is the most prolific photo book creator in Australia today, and has had the broadest experience with working with local trade publishers, he's published with the biggest photo book publisher in the world, or the most renowned, which is Steidl in Germany. He has printed in collection books. He's printed, in most cases, only his own work. He's hand printed and hand bound them. He's produced them as soft covers, hard covers, you name it, he's done it. And just while we are on this screen and talking about documentary photo books, one of the biggest books we've ever produced was for Stephen, and it was called Typhoon, and it was recording the typhoon in the Philippines a few years ago, and he produced it as a concertina book. And when it was, fully extended and rolled out, it was 40 meters long. And Jeff, my partner at Work and Play, spent his Christmas holiday printing that one. But what I found fascinating about Typhoon is that he decided to produce it at A2 size because he wanted the enormity of the, disaster. He wanted people to feel that through the size of the book and to be fully, taken into the situation. So once again, the purpose of the book helped define what format he presented the images at. Fine art photographers, I don't know if you guys have seen her work, but if you haven't, Libby Jeffery is an amazing Australian bird portrait photographer. And she is interesting in that she's a photographer who manages to bridge the worlds of fine art photography and popular photography, which doesn't happen a lot. She wanted to produce a book because she wanted to share her imagery more broadly with people who loved her work. Mainly, she prints huge, beautifully big prints that cost, you know, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a pop. So a lot of the people who love her work can't afford them. But she thought that if she makes a book, she can reduce the price by a lot. But she could also have another way of sharing her photos without sabotaging her fine art career, because the art world doesn't like you to have, you know, photos on greeting cards or, you know, tea towels and the rest of it. So the book worked beautifully for her. And this is one of those cases where she produced a short run of 25 copies, and then a few publishers became interested. They saw the book, became interested, and she ended up getting an international publishing deal. So that's just one of those other examples where it's not always monetary for photo books. This one, therapy. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I didn't expect so many people to create photo books as a form of therapy, but sadly in this case, this is a book called Dear and Farewell Angelina, which is by an Australian photojournalist called Anna Daddario. And sadly, her sister was murdered a few years ago, and she was the person who had to go and identify the body, and they were very close. And her way of dealing with the situation and the fact that she was really disturbed by the way the media had used images of her sister in the media, and she felt like they'd been, you know, they'd sabotaged the image of her sister. So her way of dealing with that was she ended up doing a fine arts honours and produced this book about her and her sister. And for her, it was a major form of therapy. She produced an artist book version with us, inkjet printed. As you can see there, she's holding up, she had lots of gatefolds and different kinds of custom elements. We don't do a lot of these books. It was an expensive book, but she did very well in her course. And she also entered the artist book into an International Photo Book Award, and then won that award, and then won a publishing deal as well, and then ended up being the main speaker at an international festival. So just some nice repercussions. All right, so there we have a few examples. Now I'm going to move back to the creation process, selecting and editing. So what you're looking at here actually is a photo book review session that we hosted a few years ago, where we teamed up, people submitted an application with the outline of their project, and we teamed them up with different experts from the publishing industry, graphic design, editors, all of whom are, you know, can really help the development of a photo book project. You don't need to have all of those people, but all I'm saying is input from external parties, even if they're just your friends, especially in this selection and editing process, can be really handy. Because I don't know if you feel this way, but at least say the most common photo book I make is a holiday photo book. I don't know if you guys are the same, but I find that if there's some distance between when I've been on the holiday And when I start to make the book, and trust me, there's usually 10 years, unfortunately, much to Jeff's chagrin. But I find that the further in time I am away from when I shot the images, that the more subjective I am about them, and I don't have that emotional attachment, and therefore you're going to select more appropriate images or a better sequence of images. And, you know, it's all subjective. You can choose whatever you like to put in your book. But if your aim is to create and design a book that is the most engaging for the people who are interacting with it, then, you know, the selection of your images is very much a big part of it. So as you can see here, Anu is actually the name of the lady on the left. She had printed all of her photos out that she was interested in putting in the book. She printed them out and actually played around with them for, in her case, a few months. She, you know, either pin them on the wall or put them on the floor and kind of move them around and see what worked together and what didn't. And I've had so many people tell me this, that, you know, things you realize after a bit of time, things that you really liked and thought worked well together, once you've kind of thought through it a bit more and spent more time with it, they don't work anymore. So that's the other thing with selecting and editing and photo book creation in general. You don't have to rush it. You know, time is very helpful. And the other big thing is, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name again, to who we were talking about, your 1,200 photos you wanted to whittle down. Peter? Peter. So that's the other thing. Less is more. Less is totally more. It's funny, this week I've been working on some promotions for wedding photographers and wedding albums, and I was speaking to a woman who's very familiar with photography. Actually, she used to be a photographer, but she was designing her daughter's wedding album, and they spent a long time selecting the photos, and her daughter kept wanting to add more and more in, but she said, but they're duplicates. We've got them all in this other shot here and there. And I think in the end, the two of them working on it together got the best selection, and they did refine it down. Like, you don't want to repeat. I think be really harsh with your culling of photos. If it's not excellent, it doesn't need to be there. Or if it isn't excellent, but it's really meaningful, I think it can go in, most definitely. Like, maybe you didn't get a great shot of a particular person because of weather conditions or something like that, or a particular place. But it has to have meaning, and it has to go back to the purpose of your book. So yes, less is more when it comes to the number of images, I feel. And the other thing is, once you've made your selection, I think it's great to show other people what you've selected and see what they think, because you know all about the images or the holiday or the event or whatever it was, but it's different when an outsider who has no emotional connection or knowledge of what's happened, for them to have a look as well. So they're my top tips on selecting and editing.
One of the things we chat about in editing our photos is finding the story, removing everything that doesn't support the story, simplify the image. So all those things that are appropriate to editing a photograph are exactly the same that you would use in putting the book together.
Yeah, okay,
Get rid of everything that doesn't help tell the story.
Oh, well, thanks. And that's really interesting, Tim, because I'm not a photographer. I've always worked with creative people, but more from like the book side, or, you know, different content elements. But you're right, like photographing and selecting images for awards and things like that is exactly the same. It has to have meaning, and it has to add to the story. So sequencing and pairing is the next phase. After you've selected the images, how are you going to, you know, lay them out in the book? Obviously, chronological order is the most common, say for travel books and weddings and things like that. And I like to think of that as being like a paper movie. But you can also sequence them by subject or theme, especially in, say, a portfolio situation. You might have all your people in one part of it, or your landscapes in the next, or objects or still life in the next part. But you don't have to. I really like it when people mix it up and do things like connecting the images by similar or contrasting patterns, because they're going to end up with two very different effects if you do similar or contrasting. Color range. I put color range in here because I learnt from the guys from the Light Collective that when they did their book, I'm sure you guys know a few of the Light Collective crew, Paul Orwell and
yep. Adam's presented, and Paul is one of the judges at the Mossman Photography Awards.
Of course. So if you've seen their book, Cat Eye Tanda, I didn't realise this, but they actually sequenced Cat Eye Tanda by colour gradients. So I'm going to try and jump out of here now to see. Oh, cool. So I want to show you. Oh, look at that, Mossman Photography Awards. Are you guys seeing this okay?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, so I just wanted to flick through and show you, the how the colour has been graded throughout this. So we've got our greens, dark tones.
We're not seeing that one yet.
Oh, really? Okay, I think maybe I have a feeling that I have to stop sharing and go into...
You've got to choose a screen to share.
Yeah, so I'm going to just jump back. Sorry, I'll go back now. I'm going to stop sharing, start sharing again, and go to here. Did that work?
That's it. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what the effect was when they did I miss one there? Yep, green. When they did it by colour. And I just like that because you've got all these aerial shots of the same place. How on earth are you going to go about figuring out how to sequence them? So colour was actually a really nice defining principle. Yellows, and then we get to the pinks at the end, the pinks and the purples.
It gets more intense as you go along.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing too. You might have minimalist images at the start and then the intensity grows and they become, more cluttered, or, there's more objects in them. But there we go. So that's one way. I'm going to close that now, and I'm going to stop sharing and jump back to my...
So Dex designed that book for them?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not confident. One second. Okay, now back to my... Okay, so by colour range and by humour. So now I'm going to jump out to show you... Oh no, I can go ahead. I'm going to show you similar or contrasting patterns in a moment that blends humour. And then I want to show you a video of a book that I think is really funny and fascinating, and because of the sequencing and pairing. So let's come back here. Oh, before I show you those examples, I think these two quotes really summarize or characterize what you should consider when it comes to sequencing and editing. This gentleman, Toon van der Heijden, is probably the most renowned contemporary photo book designer in the world right now. We were very fortunate to have him as a judge for our Photo Book of the Year Awards last year, and we met him in person, and he lives in Amsterdam. And so he's influenced by the school of Dutch photo book design, which I'll touch on in a moment. But he said, if you simply select the best 50 images, it's not an interesting book because the tension is always the same. Like a film or a novel, you have to build up to the tension and then release it. It's like ebb and flow, darkness and lightness. It's like when you're watching a film, you want, a bit of excitement, a climax, and then, it plateaus for a while and then you come back again. So it's a bit like when you're selecting photos for a book too, not every photo or image has to be a hero image. You do need some kind of images that are a bit quieter or a bit smaller that just are visual punctuation. And this one I love as well. So Ralph Gibson is an American photojournalist or documentary photographer. There's a great video that this came from. By placing a picture on the right and a picture on the page left, something must transpire in between the two-page spread, the mise-en-page. Once again, another reference to cinema and movies. The essential principle is that the sum will equal more than the total of the parts. So to me, that last phrase there, that the sum is more than the total of its parts is the important bit. And I think these next few screens show you what I mean. Like these images on their own are, you know, they're fascinating, nice images, but I think there's much more interest when they're paired together. So the images that I'm about to show you now are from a book called 52 Suburbs by Louise Hawson. Have any of you ever seen that book or her blog? Because if you haven't, I remember the first time I discovered it a few years ago that I stayed up till my eyes were red raw because the images were beautiful, but she was also very good with her captions. So 52 Suburbs was Louise's documentation of Louise's year of going to a new suburb each week to document the elements that people don't normally see. So she's Sydney based, so she went to different suburbs. And I just love how her connection is the colour and the shapes and the textures. So here's just a few I just think they're so beautiful. Colours, lines, diagonals. That one, I mean, that one is just, I'll move my, I mean, that wouldn't mean, it just, you know, the contrast there's humour that is created by combining those two together.
It's a great shot.
It is, isn't it? And that one, I mean, that says so many things visually and also culturally. It makes a comment on religion too. I love it. And, you know, some people might think that the image on the left might be a bit of a failure, but when you team it up with the image on the right, I think they kind of speak to each other. It's like they're speaking to each other. Okay. Now, before I move on to design styles, I'm going to stop sharing and show you the book that I really love. So it's a book from our, hold on, oh dear, where is it? 1 second. It isn't that one, sorry, give me just one moment. I just need to locate it. It is on my hard disk here, but I wonder, okay, so, all right.
I should have asked you at the start, Libby, but you're happy for me to be recording this?
Absolutely, no
Okay.
problem, no problem.
So I'll make that available to those who couldn't catch up.
Sure. So you're seeing now the screen with the book with the black and white images, is that right?
Yep.
Cool. I'm just going to let it play so for a few seconds. So this book was actually one of the finalists in our Photo Book of the Year Awards last year. And I actually first met this gentleman at a camera club session in Brisbane. And I didn't really know his work very well. So I was so happy when he became a finalist. But it's called The Man from Apophenia. And just so you know, apophenia is the condition where humans perceive connections between unrelated things. So this book is very visually driven and I just think amusing and fun. It's got a bit tricky with these gate folds here. We call those gate folds. So I really just wanted to show you that because I imagine that some of you have like a collection of photos that are just random, that might kind of end up coming together in a single book, or if you're looking for a new project. To me, that was just fun. I mean, he just found these spaces and objects and things around, his house. So did you enjoy that?
Yeah, cool.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that was
now,
good.
sorry?
I said that was good, and I especially like the music that someone picked to go with it.
Yes, we did that with the assistance of YouTube. But
Like you might be spurring Rick on to something here, I think, Libby.
Sorry?
You might be spurring Rick on to something here, I think, Libby.
Oh, good. But it is interesting, Rick, because don't you think, I mean, we rarely see still images with audio. And I still remember one of the best nights of the year, like a decade ago now. The best photographic event I used to go to was hosted by the ACMP, the Commercial and Media Photographers Association. And it was called Projections, and it was based on photo essays. So each entrant had to submit, I think it was like 20 images from a series. So not just 3, 20. And then they presented them with audio. And I thought it was just, when we watch films, we're generally being directed along the whole way. But it was just a nice opportunity to watch images and kind of be carried through them, and you could figure out the connection yourself. You weren't being kind of force-fed. Anyway, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree, because just a quick thought on those images that we just watched, the music added a whole nother dimension to the image itself for me.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Now, are you guys seeing my PowerPoint presentation yet? You're not, are you?
Not yet.
Okay, I have to go to sharing screen. Sorry, share screen and back to here. Okay, so play from current slide. You might happen to see a cat appearing every now and again. He's very curious right now. Okay, so I've been looking at photo books for many years, and we've been producing them for many years, but I had not actually looked at any photo book design theory until last year, after I met Toon van der Heijden, and understood why Dutch photo book design is very trendy right now, but it is distinguished or different to American photo book design. So this is just one little bit of history, that there are 2 main schools of photo book design. American photo book design kind of began with The Americans by Robert Frank, which I think was maybe around the 60s or so, 50s, 60s. And it was, as I've said, they're very simple, literal and linear. It was pretty much like a monograph. So you've got, as I say, further down the list there, blank on the left, blank page on the left, and a hero photo on the right, filling the page. Very much like an exhibition catalogue. So in that context, photography was king, design, influence and elements were very minimal. There was lots of white space, and it read literally from front to back. So I think that is the kind of book that we're most that is most common. For me, I've seen a lot more variety, but I imagine that for people, who are new to photo books or haven't seen a lot of them, that's the kind of photo book you see. Then there's the Dutch photo book design, and I've got a reference there to Sean Izzard's portfolio, which I'm going to show you a video of in just a moment. But in comparison to American photo design, it's more creative, a little bit more random, and a more contemporary style. There's definitely a closer collaboration between the photographer and the designer. And I think that's a really interesting relationship. As I mentioned before, not all photographers, although you compose within the frame of a photo, can compose within the frame of a double page spread and then keep an engaging sequence of images and layouts across multiple spreads. So Dutch photo book design really focuses on that. It's more poetic, more cinematic, like a paper movie. You don't have to necessarily read it from front to back. And what makes me kind of laugh about that is how many of you, when you pick up a book, a photo book, will read it from back to front anyway, because you flick the other way. And always, I wonder how annoyed photo book creators get, because they've designed the book to be read from front to back, but most of us read it in the other direction. In this case, people who follow Dutch photo book design or have been influenced by that won't mind, because it's supposed to be non-linear anyway. They also are more likely to introduce typographical elements, text, and also to play with the form of the book. So, you know, the cover or the feel of the cover or the gatefolds might be a part of it. The physical elements, the tactile elements are very much a part of it. And design and photography are considered equal. I didn't know that all before, but I just think they're interesting things to consider. So now I'm going to stop sharing and jump back and just show you. Normally, Dutch photo book design I've seen in, say, you know, fine art photographers or conceptual photography books. But I saw it in a portfolio just a few weeks ago. We printed a portfolio for a Sydney photographer, amazing commercial photographer called Sean Izzard from the Pool. And I'd never seen it in a portfolio format, but I really think it worked. So I'm going to jump out to share screen and let's see, Sean's there. No, just one moment. I need to open it up. Okay. Sean. Here we are. Nearly there. Here we go. So if I go there now, just try that again. Yay, here we are. And I must admit I'm a bit annoyed by this recording because it's slightly off kilter, but try not to look at that. So there you can see, even on that first double page spread, the alignment was quite random in the corners, across the page. Full page spreads always look great. But yes, kind of poetic, interesting placement of the images. And now it's a little bit more formal and classic. But I think this also shows you that kind of darkness and lightness, ebb and flow that Toon spoke about in his quote. There we go. So let me pop out of that again and come back to you guys in the presentation. So I know that may not be everybody's taste, and some people, you know, you could consider that to be just, you know, trendy or, you know, a little bit random. But I remember when I saw it, it made an impact because I don't normally see portfolios like that. So the big point that Toon and the Dutch Photo Book Design School is making is have a bit of fun with it, be creative, if you want. Okay, so design elements. How am I going for time, Tim?
Fine.
Okay, how much longer? Is it a 9 o'clock finish or?
Yep, 9 will be good.
Or, okay, so I'm going to just...
some questions, yep.
Yeah, okay.
Time for the orders, so you got your order book out?
Sure. Because I will demonstrate the software shortly and point out a few of the main elements, and I will have time for that. So I'm just going to move quickly through this screen. But the different design elements you can consider when you're designing your book is, you know, do you have a color scheme? Or how are you keeping consistent colors for text and backgrounds? Repetition is good. Not too much, but you want enough repetition to be consistent, and that might be repetition of the page layout style. We saw in Sean's book just then, there were, we saw the image in the bottom left corner quite a few times at the same size. We saw, double page spreads a few times. So you can kind of have a flow of a few pages, repeat the flow of a few pages. You can add repetitive elements just to create cohesiveness. They might be motifs on the page. They might be the page numbers themselves. They might be the page title. And I'll show you that in one moment. With the text, this is where so many photo books fall down. The choice of font, the size, the spacing between the lines, the spacing between the text and the rest of the page. More white space is always better. You need to consider, are you going to include captions? Are you going to include titles? If you have, say, aerial landscapes, I remember we printed a book for Tony Hewitt, and the big debate for him was, or the big question was, do I put the name of the aerial shot or the location of the aerial shot on the page itself, or do I put it in a kind of a key or a legend or a thumbnail preview at the back? Because people, if you wanted to know where the photograph was shot, you had to always keep flicking to the back and back again. So he felt that he actually chose to put the all the information at the back of the book, but there was reasonably good argument that it would be easier for the reader to see it on the page and that it wasn't interfering too much with the image. It's all subjective, but these are the kinds of things you can consider. I've already talked to you about format, size, paper, cover, finishes. On that note, one thing that a lot of people who self-publish books fail to consider is they look at the cost of printing the book, but not of shipping the book out. And that can be a real killer. So my suggestion is that if you did want to produce a limited edition book, and you plan for your audience to be international, maybe consider the size, keep it smaller, keep it soft cover, keep it at a size that can fit into a standard envelope, and then you won't be hit with the huge postage. If you do, however, want to produce a version with higher production values, there is absolutely no reason why you can't do some in the standard edition and then a few in the limited edition. Totally subjective, totally goes back to what the purpose of your book is and who your audience is. And these are just a few things. Extra graphics or ephemera. There's this trend at the moment in adding ephemera into a book, like, loose prints or maps, or, if you're doing a family history book, adding family trees. And I can't even see what I've got there. Oh, inserts. So it all comes back to what the purpose of your book is, and are there additional elements that you can add to a book page or within the book itself that enhance the story or give the photographs more context or meaning. Okay. Let's make a book. All right. Oh, I know what I wanted to do before I open the software. I just wanted to show you a book that I think beautifully presents those details about book design and design themes and how they can really enhance the final production of a book. So just one moment, I will stop sharing and jump back to, I think we have it open here. So, sorry, that was my cat. Okay, one moment. Stop share, sorry guys, just locating that window again. Here we are. Can you see that now? The
local villages?
Local villages, okay. So I'm very thankful to this woman called Barbara Brown, who I think is an engineer by trade, but she takes her very technical skills and knowledge, or puts her technical knowledge to good use with her photography. She's from Western Australia. She's an amateur photographer, but has been managing to do very well in, different national photographic prizes over the years. And she produced this book on Chernobyl, which is fascinating in and of itself. So choosing a good subject is great. And I've just realized that I'm showing you, this is the after that I want to show you here. I want to show you the before. So excuse me, sorry. I'm just going to jump back out and show you the original version of this book that she created. So, one second. She created this book. Okay. So originally she designed the book, and this is what she did. Sorry, it's a bit tricky trying to figure out how it likes to find your files. Just one moment. I'm going to stop that again and start again. Share screen. Ah, yes, here we are. Sorry. Okay, can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so this, I'm just going to show you through, this is actually what we call a Momento proof PDF. So this is what our software produces when you've designed a book and you've exported it. And this is for you to use as your proof and to check that everything's fine, fonts, alignment and everything. Now the first issue with this is that she's got a typo on the cover page. So I really suggest that you review your proof PDF carefully and get somebody else to look at it, because you might have looked at it so much that you don't notice that there's a typo there. Okay, so now I'm just going to run through some of the pages of the book. So as you can see, text on the first page. She's got two different fonts here, a different font for the title compared to the body text. I like that because it kind of differentiates them, and it means that the title, you know, the larger, bolder, more decorative font makes it seem more important, which it is. I like the way that she's kept the title of the book or across the top of the pages. She's keeping everything nicely aligned here. Although the font here, the centering doesn't seem to work as well as I think left alignment could. I don't mind the fact that she spanned 2 pages. That kind of makes the image feel important and kind of does it justice, because that's a pretty big space. Alignment's not too bad here. The placement of the caption is a bit unusual. It's all right. Here we have a bit of a font error, so that's the kind of thing you need to look at. Anyway, I'll just keep scrolling. So ultimately, this big book is not a bad book design, but see here where there's different alignments, this has got a bit of white space, this bleeds right to the edge. I think you could create a little bit more consistency. This text kind of seems to be swimming in the middle of a white space there. I don't mind the space around it, but I'm not sure which image it's alluding to. So there we go. So you can see what she designed. As I say, not a bad design, but this is what happens when a graphic designer like Kathy Eastway gets a hold of the same images and the same text and then turns it into a really awesome design, I think. So you can see this video again now, can't you?
Yes.
All right. And I think you'll like the audio here too. And you'll see there's a color scheme that's happening here. Different fonts. She's pulled out important text to highlight it by making it, the width is less. I think it's great that she's used 2 columns for the text, because it's actually easier to read shorter widths of text rather than right across the page. The alignment is more consistent at the top and the bottom. It doesn't matter that you've got kind of a portrait orientation and a landscape orientation and they're not exactly aligned, because they don't need aligning, but they're centered. Okay, so to me, that second version of the book was, I think, a more successful version and looked more professional. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Nice job.
So now I'm going to go to the software. I can see that I've got about 20 minutes to 9 o'clock. So I'm going to do 10 minutes of the software, and then feel free to ask me any questions, and actually feel free to ask me any questions while I'm in the software as well. So let's see if I can share screen. Go to the software. All right. So for those of you who haven't seen the software before, we've got a Momento Pro version and a Momento version. You guys have access to the Momento Pro version. There's not a huge difference between the two. It's just that there are a few more products like the flush mount albums that you can access in our Momento Pro service. And there's a few more different binding types, which you'll see in just a moment. So no surprise, I'm going to go and create a photo book here. As I mentioned, there's different binding types that you can choose in our Momento Pro service. To keep this simple, I'm just going to go to the side sewn binding type. I'm going to be creating a travel book, and a lot of my images are landscape images. So I am going to choose landscape orientation because they will work nicely on that format. You can choose different sizes. I'm going to choose regular. My hot tip is if you do ever plan to print it at grand size, make sure you choose grand then, because we can downsize, we can't upscale. I just want to show you how quickly you can create a book if you use some of our automated tools. These are all automated tools here. I'm going to show you a themed QuickBook, which is already made up. It literally just takes your images and slots them into our templates. I'm just navigating as you would to the folder where you're, no, I want to go to my Turkey photos. Here we go, 2013 in Turkey. So you just navigate to your folder. So you're literally saying, I want these photos to be inserted into this book. I don't think you guys are going to be interested in this, these options right here, but this is how quickly you can design a book if you're not feeling creative, or if you just want to get a bit of guidance to get you started. So we've created a combination of page templates and full QuickBooks, so multiple templates lined up on the page. And what we're going to see here in a moment is what I think is a reasonable, good, you know, it looks good. It's a good looking page, photo book design, but we can go in and tweak it. So what we've come through to now is the main interface for the software. I'm not going to dwell on that for a moment. I literally just want to take you up here to the preview section, because we can jump out. This is where you do all your manual creation, but I just want to take you to the preview section that strips away all the tools, and you're literally just seeing the pages, and just to show you what you've ended up in terms of an automated design. So, you know, nicely, you know, aligned on the page, a few pages with multiple images. Why is that doing that? You know, a few sequences across the page. Sorry, it's probably still drawing in the background because the file size is quite large. Okay, so there we have some page designs, and I think you'll agree they're not bad at all, but I think we can create something a little bit more exciting and appropriate for the images. So now I'm going to jump back out to the main interface and start a new project. I'm not going to save that one because we're going to create our own. Jump back here to photo books, side sewn, once again landscape and regular. And I'm now going to go to a manual book design. And the first thing I'll do is just add in 20 pages by clicking this plus button up the top here, so that we've got a few pages to work with, and I want them to all occur after the last page in this case, which is also the first page. So before I get into the design side of things, I just want to point out the main elements of the interface. So on the left-hand side, we have, sorry, can you, are you seeing the top bar there in your screen? You are, yes you are, don't worry. Yes. Because I can't see it, it hides behind the Zoom tools. Okay, so over here on the left-hand side is where we have all the content that you want to put into the book, whether it's the photos. Obviously, we need our photos in the photos panel. We also have background colors and themed graphics, frames that you might want to add. There's a whole heap you can add into the software. I'll show you that in a second. Embellishments. Look, guys, I'm not thinking that you will use a lot of these, but there's graphics that you can use, and there's a whole heap of layouts, but we'll see those working in just a moment. This is where you find your folders of photos to navigate through your hard disk to find the images you want to include. Just be aware that if you change the location of a photo while you're making the book, you're basically breaking the link between the software and where the photo exists. So when you open a file again after you've moved it, it's going to say, I can't find that photo. It's not the end of the world. You just need to navigate again and find it, but try and avoid, moving them around while you're in the middle of a design. But as I say, it's not the end of the world. Over here in the photos panel, you can sort by date or by name, whichever you prefer. Here's your last few folders you've been looking at. And so that's all your content on the left-hand side. Across the top is the sequence of the design process. Start screen was where we began. I'm not even going to mention sort right now. It's not going to be a part of this discussion. It's not helpful in this. It's highlighted layout mode, step 3. We're in layout mode now, and we've got this canvas across here. You can see 2 pages here right now, but this button here, if you want to just see 1 page, you can see 1 page, but 2 pages seems much more helpful to me. We were just in preview a moment ago where it stripped away all the tools, and finish is where we are going to end up. Across here, we also have ways to navigate through the software. You can move to the cover, between the different pages, to the start or the end of the book. That's your single page view, your double page view, adding pages, adding pages, moving pages, and deleting them. So that's one way to navigate through the software. The other way is down the bottom here, or through the pages. You can just use the thumbnails at the bottom. It'll become more apparent when I put a bit more content in. And then over here on the right-hand side is where all the editing tools are. I'll take you through that in a moment. It's all grayed out at the moment because we don't have any elements on the page for it to kind of work with. Updater is where you will find new versions of the software or any content like embellishments and graphics that I was mentioning. I don't think a lot of these are going to interest you guys, but they're available if you do happen to make a book that's, you know, a history book, or you'd like some kind of parchment paper background and that kind of thing. Uploader is where you'll end up when we've finished. Inspiration is where this is really quite helpful, and I would say if you're going to look at 2 pages on our website about designing books and self-publishing, these are a great way to access them. There's a lot of information that I've talked about tonight in this one. And if you do plan to self-publish, that is a very handy guide. That's about 10 years worth of my knowledge in there. This is Jeff's favorite part of the software. This is for the geeks and the people who like the shortcuts. You can go in here and get all your shortcuts and quick help there, keyboard shortcuts, there we go. So that's all the different parts of the software. But let's go back to I'm not going to go to the cover yet, because when I make a book, I prefer to have my book designed and then come back and do the cover, you know, once I'm more familiar with the images and I find the most appropriate content to put on there. So I think starting on the first page is a very handy place to start. So I have chosen my turkey, or our turkey holiday photos here, to turn into a book. And I know this is really obvious, but still a lot of people don't do it. I would start by putting a title on the page and including a date and a name, because although we might remember everything soon after we've returned, we may not remember in years to come. And more importantly, a lot of people who are going to look at your book were not there with you, and they don't know necessarily where you are or when it was. So to add text to a book, come up here to the top toolbar, add text. You'll see that this is a lot of functionality that you see in other software. I'm going to call this Turkish Delight. And I'm going to jump in now to the fonts section. You'll be pleased to note, so this is going to take maybe a minute or so to load all the fonts, because basically what it's doing is looking into your onto your hard disk to see what fonts you have installed there. We also have some fonts that we've included in the software, but the good news is that as of next week, we will have a new release of the software, and 1 minute will turn into like 1 second. So this will, the fonts will appear much faster, but it gives me the opportunity to say that with the software, what we have is a little bit of Photoshop functionality, a little bit of InDesign functionality, and a little bit of, say, Word functionality. But it's not the, extremes of any of those. But with text, we have the ability to change the size, the font, the color, and the alignment. My suggestion is, if you are going to create a book that will include a lot of text, prepare your text, type up your text, prepare it, and spell check it in another word processor, because we don't have spell check in the software. And if you are going to do that, to keep what I call the gremlins out of the software. So, when you copy and paste text from, say, an email into a Word document or vice versa, sometimes you get hieroglyphics or those kind of webbing characters. To get the cleanest possible text for copying and pasting between different software packages, use Simple Text or Notepad. Anyway, now we're in the software. Oh, sorry, we're in the font, the text window here. And I was kind of mentioning or inferring before that I like meaning at every level of my books. So in the case of my Turkish holiday book, I want to choose a font that is kind of reminiscent of what I might find in Turkey. And I just so happened to find a font called Falafel, which I love. It's kind of that Arabic script. But you've got to be careful.
Hummus.
Sorry?
Hummus.
Oh, perfect name. Perfect name. I'm sure there's one out there. But what is interesting is that you just got to be careful when you use downloaded fonts, because they might look fine on screen while you're in the software, but you need to check how they look in your proof PDF that we were looking at before when we were looking at Barbara's book. Because if there's an issue with the software, if there is an issue with the font, it will show up in that proof PDF, but not necessarily in the software. So just make a point of that. I'm going to change the font size because I think it needs to be larger on the page. So just to give you a feel for it, there's Turkish Delight, and I am going to center it. And there it is on the page. Okay, so it's if we want to align it perfectly, all we need to do is to select that box and come over here to the tools panel, and you'll see we've got this position panel here. And if I want to center it vertically and horizontally, I'm just going to do it there. And just to prove the point a little better, there we go. So that's automated centering. I mean, that's interesting, but I think, it's nice to start a photo book with a photo as well. So I'm going to come over here now and come over to my photo panel. I double clicked on it then by mistake, but what that did was it just enlarged the image. So if you ever want to see more detail in your image, just double click. But just like in a movie, when, the director, the creator has to set the scene or the tone for the film that kind of prepares you for what you're going to see next. I feel you need to do the same thing in a book. So, what are the iconic images or objects or cultural, elements that you see when you're in another country? Well, when I was in Turkey, I saw lots of tiles. So I think that that's an appropriate element to add to my title page. I want, in this case, to fill the page. So you can either right click. There's different ways to do this. You can right click and set the photo as background. there we are. That's not so great though. I don't think we can see much. Or I'm just going to clear the background to fill the page. Oops, center that. You can also use this option over here, just the button to fill the page. Set the photo as background. Once again, there's nothing legible there. We can't see the text against the background, no problem. You can reduce the opacity of the background image by selecting it and then coming up the top here. So to me, you're getting the best of both worlds there, where you're getting your pattern that's iconic or makes reference to Turkish culture and arts, and you've got your text. If you wanted, you could just kind of make the colors blend in a little better by going back to your font window there and choosing I would call this Bosphorine blue, like the Bosphorus Sea there. So, okay, we have our title page. And I should also add in the date or I'll forget. So there we go. I'm going to center that on the page. So we have our first page. Next, once again, you still have to keep setting the scene. So to me, I'd like to choose like a landscape shot that I think is, very iconic for Turkey. So this is the Blue Mosque, I think. Yes, it is. And what I actually showed you there, I'll just show you a few of the basic kind of editing tools that we have. So with any photo, as you saw, I dragged that onto the page. After I dragged it onto the page, it put a tick here to just confirm that it's been used. Now I can drag to expand or to enlarge the photo. I can pull on the green arrows to shrink and expand. And when I did that there, you saw the red warning. So basically the software has warnings in there when you, in this case, have dragged an image from the left onto the right-hand page and it's not sure if you want it on the left or the right-hand side. So that's just saying you've either dragged it too much to the right or you need it to bring it back here. So as you can see, that changes as you move it around. If you move the red arrows, you're actually cropping the photo rather than expanding it, and you can just move it around as the image around within that crop area. This one I don't imagine you're going to use very much, but just so you know, you can rotate them as well. The other option for rotation is up here. You have your 90 degrees up there as well. Okay, so in this case though, I want to really make this the hero of the page. I'm going to clear my cropping. I actually want to span it across 2 pages, given that it's it's a nice panorama. So you can click on the image and then come over here to your position tools, and that is the automatic span across the page. So you don't have to worry about aligning what's on the left and the right. The software does that all for you, and that will actually change depending behind the scenes. The software will allow for that if you're choosing lay flat paper, or which is laying perfectly flat, or the non-lay flat paper which has the curved gutter in it. So the software takes care of that all for you. You don't have to worry. But I've just double clicked on that by mistake. So we're going to see a lovely image of the mosque. But to fill the screen, sorry, I just double clicked again by mistake. So to span it and fill the page, I'm going to choose the span page, and then we can move it up and down as needed. A few other quick things just on alignment, because I know I'm very close to time now. Let's say you have, you want to create a little kind of vignette or a sequence of images from within the same place. So I'm going to choose, we're in the Hagia Sophia here. I'm going to choose these 3 images. Move them here. And one more. I just want to show you how you can align things easily and resize them. So that's not a great page layout, to be fair, but what I can do is a few things. I can either go straight up here to layouts and run through the different layout options here. It's only scene 2, sorry, just drag that onto the page. So as you can see, you've got a whole list or number of options to change the placement on the page. And my preference is this. You could do that manually as well. Let's do that on this page, for instance. So let's say, I know what we'll do. We'll take this image and let's say, for the hell of it, this image. Now there's slightly different ratios here, but if you want them to be the same, you can do that automatically by selecting both of them, right clicking, and then you can choose, oops, I forgot to get both. Sorry, relative align, oops. Relative align, oh no, sorry, size to. So I want them to be sized now to the largest image. And so now they have the same ratio. And just a few more alignment tools. If you want that image to meet the top and bottom of the page, you can use this one here. Sorry, that was my cat. And you can move it to the side of the page, sorry. Okay, we'll do that again. So there's just a few alignment tools. The last thing I'll show you is, if you wanted to, you can also add background colors. In this case, I'm just going to add black behind there. It automatically fills the page. But I think then you've kind of lost the definition around these images. You can then choose to go in and add a frame. In this case, I'm going to choose a simple keyline frame, because that's all I have installed, but that's really the only thing I use anyway. So you literally select your image, come over here to keyline. If you would like to change the color, and in this case I do, I want it to be white so it stands out, you can change the color and you can change the thickness. And then you just drag that on there, and we'll just realign these on this page with the, sorry, drag that on there like that. And then up in preview mode, you can see that you've got a reasonable page layout there. But I think now I'll hand it over to you guys. If there are any questions about the software or the layout that you want to ask, please go right ahead.
You've probably got to make a book or two to get used to it, dude.
Yeah. And if, just so you know, that we do have some videos that are available that you know, talk you through everything that I've been talking through on the website. And our customer service team, they're a team that we're based in Sydney. The team is available to talk on the phone if you have any questions. We don't rush them off the phone, so you can also ask them as well. There's software help on the website, and there is the quick help here in the software as well.
I think the examples are great because it's hard to, you may all have the images, but looking at how you might put them together and those options of looking at some other books and also those layout options you've got there are very helpful.
Exactly. And look, not every layout option there is going to appeal to you, but I think it's a really good starting point if you just want to get, you know, just to get a flow and see what the sequence is like. And if you would like to see more examples, great book designs, I suggest you go to our Australia and New Zealand Photo Book Awards webpage too, because we've got videos of all the winners, and you know, you can be inspired by other books, but actually go to bookshops. It's, you know, have a look at what you like when you go to a bookshop. There's plenty.
I've made about 10 books with the Momento books, so I love them.
Oh, thanks.
Great, and I always recommend them.
Oh, thank you. Who am I talking to?
Rosie?
Rosie from marketing.
And Scotty?
Sorry, I'm a bit dark. I have met you before, Libby, somewhere. I can't remember it, something. But yeah, I think they're really great. The only thing that I had an issue with one time was, or a couple of times, is I think because you see the images on a computer, they're quite bright. But when they're printed, they were quite dark.
Yep.
And so I have learnt now that you have to, you know, adjust the brightness of your image for the printing of it.
Well, thank you, Rosie, for mentioning that, because that's an area I'm not an expert in, but what I do know is this, that we have ICC profiles available for every paper stock that we have. So if you download those profiles and you've got a calibrated monitor, then you can soft proof in Adobe Photoshop, and what you see is what you will get in the print.
Right.
Now, I will admit, I'm the first person to admit that I'm not that skilled in that department, and in most cases you don't have to worry. But if you are really concerned or interested in the, you know, reproduction of your color, then calibrating your monitor and using the ICC profiles will help you avoid any issues. If you want to learn more about that, give our customer service team a call and they can talk you through it. Or there is also on our website, and I'll just show you, I'm going to stop sharing that and just show you on the website where you can find that information. Give me just one moment, because it's all there for people like me who don't understand color management that well.
Sounds like a tutorial with Les Walklings.
Exactly.
Oh, most of the time your monitor's far too bright, and that's why they print dark. So if you haven't calibrated your monitor, you're going to have dark printing.
Thank you for saying that for us. That's exactly right. But just so you know, Les Walkling is hosting a series of webinars in the coming weeks. And if you go to our events page on the Momento Pro site, we've got it listed there. You can see this. Can you see the software, the website now?
Yeah.
Yep.
So while I'm there, I am just going to drop down to our events page to show you that we do have a few webinars ourselves coming up. But down here, Les is doing a whole heap of webinars on color and what have you, so you can get some information from him. But I don't want to be distracted. I need to come back here to our color management page. So in the service menu there, we've got the design tools. If you haven't yet downloaded the software, you'll find it here in our design tools options. There's a few more there for you. And on that page too is also the link to the color management information. And this is where, as I said, you need to calibrate and profile your monitor. You need to know what color space you're in, and you can use our soft proof profiles to ensure you get the best color. Where are they? They're down here. I think, soft proof profiles. So they're all available here. And if you're not clear on that, please call our customer service team and they can help you with that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And just so you know, if you ever do have what you think is a color issue, do call us. Don't just be annoyed and not contact us. We have a lot of people who call us and say that our printing is not as good as their photo prints, and we have to explain to them that's a very different printing process, and a lot of labs will actually adjust the color beforehand. We just accept your file as you submit it. And that's why if you are concerned about the color, you do need to do the calibration and the ICC profile download and soft proofing. But the point is, we also do print as the first page in every book a color chart. So if a color swatch, sorry. So if anybody does have an issue and you call us and you tell us, we'll go and find that swatch and we'll check. And if the color swatch proves that the error is at our end, because printing, the indigo printer can be a temperamental beast sometimes, but we've got it totally under control. But if it did have a tanty, then we can identify that the issue was at our end and we'll correct it. If we identify that our printing was accurate and the issue is at your end, we'll help you figure out how to correct it.
So Jen had a question about what sort of paper options and advice on choosing paper.
Okay, so we have 12 paper stocks at the moment. Our most popular is easily our Satin 170 paper stock, which is a really beautiful stock. It's our most one of our most economical stocks. And I never like to say cheap because that means it sounds cheap, but they're all superior stocks and they're all thicker. Cost effective, affordable.
Good value.
Yeah, exactly.
Good value.
Exactly. But Saturn 170 works with all, all different kinds of images, bright, black and white, the whole gamut. And this is where, Tim, you come into it. And with that, the welcome pack that you've got, all in that is a swatch box that has all the cover materials and also a sample of each of the paper stocks. And on the back of each of the paper stocks, there's the same images printed so that you can see, the difference across all the different paper samples. So Saturn 170 is beautiful. My personal favorite is Eggshell, which is like an affordable, like an art paper. But what uncoated stocks like the Eggshell do is they do naturally desaturate your images. So you need to use your ICC profiles if you want to ensure you're getting the right reproduction. But if you're into tactile, if you're into art stock and the tactile nature of your paper, Eggshell is stunning. It's also environmentally friendly. If you plan on putting a lot of spanned images across the gutter in your book, the lay flat paper stock is a good option. The lay flat paper stock, which comes in a luster finish, a matte and a gloss, actually has like a flexible hinge in the middle so that the pages sit perfectly flat. Another way to get that kind of flat finish though, or as opposed to like a side sewn book where you take the book block of pages, you stitch down the side, and then when you open it up, you get the curve, the natural curve. That's what we call side sewn. If you would like to avoid that, the other way is to choose a different binding type. So section sewing, which is where 8 pages at a time are kind of folded and sewn into a book so that every time you get to the middle of a section of 8, it lays flat. There are just some limitations on which size books you can use that on. And that's why those paper swatch samples are helpful, but it's also on our website here. So here, for example, are all of the papers for our hardcover photo books. Your inkjet cotton rag, just to give you a sense, if you want to get a bit of a idea of dollars, what we're talking dollar-wise here. The Saturn 170 I was talking about down here also comes in a 150 weight if you're doing lots of books. Saturn 170 is around about $1 a page or side. So for a double page spread, it's $2. Whereas if you wanted to go top shelf and get the luscious 100% cotton rag, which is what you print your exhibition images on, you'd be paying like $10 a page or $20 a side. So basically what we have done with our range is we've crossed we've got the full gamut. So your top shelf, expensive, 100% cotton rag. Next down the ladder is your lay flats. Matte ultra white is another beautiful matte finish. Gloss, we don't sell a lot of gloss, to be honest. Luster, if you like the finish on your photo prints, then that's what you're going to get in with the luster paper stock. There's my favorite, the Eggshell. And then, as I said, you come down to the Saturn 170.
So were you open at the moment? Is your storefront open, or is it got a locked door and you got to tap and get one person at a time? Or
no, actually, so right now during coronavirus, we are just production staff.
Yep.
But normally you can make an appointment to come and see us and visit the showroom. You do need to call in advance though, so that we can give you, the appropriate time of day. But Tim, what we could do is, if you wanted, you can actually organise to come and do a tour of the facility.
Okay.
And I think that for us, that would be much better than everyone individually, because we have a very small team of customer service staff. So if when we're, free again, if that's something you're interested in, just feel free to get in contact with me and we can take you on a tour. And if you want to see what happens behind the scenes, because it is a beautiful thing. You can watch, I'm not going to play it for you now, but you can go in and you can watch it at your leisure. But you can see how we produce everything behind the scenes.
Okay. So Ian had a question whether there was anything between A3 and A4, but I presume that becomes a custom size and then you add dollars to the process.
Well, this is where I give the same answer of yes and no. So what we do have is, so we have our print on demand range, which we call, if you want to print 1 copy up to 24 copies, that's what we call print on demand. If you start printing 25 copies or above, that's what we call our volume order range. And that's where we have introduced a few more sizes, one of which happens to be between A3 and A4. Or it's, so I'll just, now I happen to be on the website here, let's just have a quick look. So in volume orders.
So that's good news for Ian, he's only got to order 26 books.
Or, having said that, yes, you can order a custom size if you want, but yes, you will pay for it. Yeah. You will pay for it. Yeah. But you'll see there's one more size in here, what we call so portrait ISO is international standard, if you'd like to know. So that's like your A4 size, but then this portrait trade is what I call like a slightly squat version of an A4 sheet. So yes, there's a few more sizes in our hardcover range, but you can always order custom, but you will pay for it.
More of an 8x10 sort of size, is it?
Yeah, but you're talking inches and I don't get that. Sorry, I'm hopeless.
I can't see too many grey hairs on that forehead of yours.
Oh, bless. Well, the colour's working. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So basically you're saying if you're using the 170 paper that you were talking about,
yeah,
the Satin 170, so you're saying that's about a $1 per page roughly?
Yes, it's a little bit more than $1, but I just can't remember it off the top of my head.
And so the covers are extra. I mean, I'm just kind of...
how you want to figure out the pricing?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I generally say to people is you can actually make a book with us for $5 and you can make a book for $5,000. What it all depends on is the size, the paper stock, the number of pages, the cover materials, all the different options you choose. But to give you a feel for an average price for a book, Jeff, how many pages did we say today was the average? So right now, our database actually logs everything. Number of what the averages are. So as of today, the average book size is 77 pages. So let's say you've got your 77 satin pages. You've got, for a standard hardcover, printed hardcover or classic hardcover is about $80. 150.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
But if if you wanted to, add a dust jacket, that's approximately like $25, or you want to add embossing, that's $10.
So that's A4 size.
Oh, yes, that's right. And what I failed to acknowledge then was that then you add your 10% club discount.
Of course, yes.
So by reference, because there's a couple of Focus members here, that was an A5, the Focus book?
Oh no, your Focus book is A4. So that's 210 wide by 297 high.
And it's got about 20 odd pages in it?
I reckon it was about at least 50 or something.
50, okay.
Yep. And right. What's interesting about the Focus book is, well, not interesting, but very nice, is that you did choose section sewing. So the pages sit nice and flat.
Okay. And so I've got, so for members who want to look at those, I can bring some along. We've got some Focus books you can look at.
And the cover material on the Focus book is a very nice cover material, midnight matte, very stylish.
Of course.
Libby, I have just a mechanical question, if I may, on the software.
Okay, Michael, if need be, I might need to call somebody from the audience to answer.
is not that complex, and I very
Okay.
much appreciate your taking us through how it all works. But let's say that you've put your selection of photographs in, and as you get through the book, maybe even towards the end of it,
Yep.
You've got one photo that you realise that you need to change. You need to add some more contrast. Take it back to Photoshop or Lightroom and fiddle with it.
Yep.
And then you also realise that you've got another photo back in the file there that you didn't bring across. And now I think I do want to have it in the photo book.
Yep.
How do I manage those situations?
Okay, so as long as you edit your file and name it with the same name and in the same location where the one that's already in use is, you're fine.
I'm sorry.
It'll swap the image over, will it?
Yes. Hold on. Sorry, my technical support team is putting up his hand to say something.
Just be aware we're changing the aspect ratio of the photo.
Oh, so Jeff's hot tip was just be aware if you change the aspect ratio though of the photo, because you will need to go and have a look at the page and make sure it fits appropriately. Your second question though was, so you've changed the file name, and the second one was if you find a photo that you want to add in, you just have to find the location you want to insert it in, and that's fine. What I think is important for you to know is that, let's say you have spanned photos across double page spreads. The software will ensure that if you go to remove one page and it's going to put everything out of whack, then it automatically adjusts that for you so that you're never left with, you know, what should have been on the left, on the right, and what have you.
Yeah, but how do you get it back from, say it's in Lightroom or Photoshop, to your software?
Okay, it's all about where you have your image files. So our software will recognize any JPEG, TIFF or PNG file. So as long as it's in those formats, the software can see it, not RAW. And you literally can navigate. So let me, you know, when I showed you on the left-hand side of the software where you access the photos folder, you can just direct, you know, you're literally searching within your hard disk to locate where your images are, and then you can drag them onto the page. So
you drag them into your software, is that?
Yeah, so I'm going to just jump, going to stop sharing, and I'm going to jump back to the software just to show you again. Hold on, share screen, software. Okay, so can you see the software again now?
Yep.
Okay, so over here on the left, I'm going to go to a blank page too. I'll just go to the cover. You're saying that I have all my photos right now saved in my 2013-05 Turkey folder, because, you know, I try to keep them very organized. And let's just say I'm going to go in and pop in now another image for the hell of it, which you can't see. Okay, you can't see that because I'm going outside of the software. All I'm saying is if you go and drop another photo into that folder, 2013-05 Turkey, you can come back here and it says reload photos.
Mm-hmm.
You'll reload that, and then the photo will appear wherever it should in the sequence, in chronological or name order. So you literally just drop any additional photos back into the folder where all the others are.
So if you're starting off, for example, in Lightroom in a collection, and you've made your selection from your collection, you need to export that collection maybe to your name, and then you import that folder into the Momento software. Is that
Jeffrey, but you don't have to come on screen, but I'm just calling upon my tech support here.
Especially if he's in his pajamas.
Well, he's wearing his Superman t-shirt. Michael, do you mind asking that question again, please?
all right? So I'm just trying to understand the mechanics. I mean, I'm the heretic person here who uses a lot of blur. So I'm coming from the software that's
We'll still talk to you.
into Lightroom. And let me say to begin with, Blurb is not near as nice as Momento, but it's also very convenient and it's not very expensive. So when I do that in Lightroom, the photo book module is totally integrated to within Lightroom. So I can just move from one module to another, develop and what have you.
Yep.
I'm assuming that what I would do in this case is I might have a collection. I've selected those items in the collection that I want to bring into Momento. I export them out of Lightroom onto my desktop in a folder, and then I import that folder into Momento software.
That's absolutely correct. And if you ever want to go and change the look of a photo, you just go back to Lightroom, find the photo and re-export it, and the software will automatically pick up the change. As long as you export to the same.
Take it out of, redo it in Lightroom or whatever, export it to the desktop, put it into that folder, and re-import that folder into Momento.
No, you won't even need to re-import as long as the photo replaces the old one. In other words, the photo goes into the same folder and replaces the existing copy. Our software will just pick up the change and go, okay, there's a new version, and it'll update.
What if it's a new photo? You've decided to add a totally new photo.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're putting a new photo in, then it'd have a new name. It would then appear in the folder on the left. So the way our software works is that you point the left panel toward a folder, and everything in that folder will always appear. So if you drop new photos in, they'll magically just appear. You don't even have to hit refresh. They'll just magically appear. And then you can drag them into an existing page or add a new page. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, all these things you got to play with it for a while, but yeah, principles.
Yeah, unfortunately, Adobe aren't open to us being included in their software like Blurb because we don't deliver worldwide. We've been at them relentlessly to say, can you at least have some standard sizes in there, because they only have Blurb sizes, and the only standard sizes they've got are the square sizes. Unfortunately, they're not adding anything other than the Blurb content for now, but we continue to work on them because we'd just be able to export directly from Lightroom.
Okay, well that'd be great. Continue to work hard.
We'll do. We've actually just found a new contact via Darren Leal. He's helping us get some earlobes
traction
to talk to somebody's ears.
All right, we got a question from Janice about customizing.
Okay.
Yes, Libby.
Hi there.
I've done a few books over the years, but unfortunately not with Momento. And the one problem I find is if I want to customize layouts rather than using the standard ones,
yep,
it's difficult to have guidelines that you can use to exactly position images on a page rather than have automated positioning.
So just let me check that I've understood you correctly. So let's say with this page here where you like, let's say we like the placement of the 3 images here in this particular size. Yes. Okay, so I haven't done this for a while, so let's see how I go. But basically over here in our file menu, there's save layout options.
Oh, good, yes.
Yeah. So save layout as, and then it gives you different options. So you can either, let's say you were going to repeat, maybe not a photo, but a graphic on a particular page. You might want to save the current photo in the template. So it's like, let's say it's a watermark or something, or an emblem that appears on every page. You might choose to save the current template, save current photos. Or if you had a title at the top of every page, like in Barbara Brown's book, there was the title at the top of every page. You might want to save the current text.
Can you save the current layout?
Yes, so that's what we're doing here.
Fine.
Saving that layout.
Is it possible to position photos according to your own desire rather than have them automatically centered or?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yep.
The page is your blank canvas.
Is there a measurement guide that
Yep, I'll show you that right now. I should have showed
Right.
you before, actually. So let's say you always wanted to keep the alignment of your pages. If you're going to use those images, you want it to align across the top of here. Come up to show rulers.
Yep. It's
Oh,
exactly
you've got show rulers.
exactly like Photoshop.
Yep, so edit, show rulers, and then you can drag them down from the top like Photoshop.
Excellent, excellent. That's been the thing that is missing in many programs.
Unlike, say, InDesign and many other programs, our rulers, once you set them, they appear on all pages, so that you can have a continuous flow and structure.
That's very useful.
You can turn them on and off as you need with the shortcut keys.
Excellent.
All right, so
Pleasure.
Sandor had a question, and that was about safe zone and the actual page size.
Jeff,
How can he be sure when he prints full bleed that he doesn't lose something?
Okay, Lib mentioned edge warnings before.
Yes.
So you'll see there's a dotted line 5 millimeters inside the page edge.
Yep.
That's our safe zone, or safe area as we call it. What we like, as would any printer you ever approach, is you either keep your content comfortably within the page. In our world, that's inside the safe area. Or if you do want to print to edge, that you don't just stop exactly at the page edge, that you extend it. There's an invisible 3 mil bleed. And if you stop before you reach that 3 mil, you'll get a red edge warning, which is saying to you, can you please extend the photo a little further so that we get that bleed, so that when we trim your book, we don't have any risk of the image not fully reaching the page edge.
Yeah, so
if you just keep it simple and do one edge, just shrink the photo down.
Yeah.
And then as you drag it up slowly or to the right, you'll see that red warning is saying, look, you're not comfortably off the page. So either come on the page.
Like that, and that's within the safe area where that dotted line is, or bring it out over the edge.
And you'll see that it's actually snapping into position either on the safe area or the bleed, so that the snapping's helping you make sure that you do actually get fully off the page.
So I suppose to answer the question, you wouldn't put anything critical between the safe zone and the edge.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you're worried about it being clipped, then you've got to crop or manage your image in a way where you don't have anything in that zone.
Correct. Similarly for text, we'll give you an edge warning if any text characters at all go outside the safe area, even off the page. And you'll notice in the gutter of the book, so the alternating left, right of the sides of the page, that there's a wider gutter, and that's on a side sewn book, a 15 mil, but on a lay flat book, it's 5 mil.
Now, I noticed on one of the earlier books you showed, one of the photo books, there was a black margin around all the images.
Would have been a border frame.
It would. Yes. Okay. So it would have been a frame. So
like a black frame. No, it was only for about the 5 mils. All right, it was just around the perimeter. So your the photo books that you were showing early on.
Yep.
So that could be the paranoia of that particular photographer not wanting to run the risk of having anything trimmed.
Oh, so do you mean like this? So let's say, for instance, where they've popped a black background on, and
the whole image goes to the safe zone.
Yep.
And then the perimeter.
Oh yeah, fill
black.
safe area. Okay.
So we've got some shortcuts on the right toolbar. No, that's fill page.
Sorry, I meant to do this. Sorry, clear background. So that would be going like so.
Yeah. So there's 4 shortcuts. You can fill the page, fit the page, fill the safe area, or fit the safe area. If you use the fill features, they will crop your photo, but if you use the fit features, they won't crop your photo.
So this is fit, and then this is fill.
Okay, so if you're worried that you actually want to show every beautiful pixel, you would probably have a blank margin around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Does that help, Sandor? Yep. Thumbs up from Sandor. Any other questions at all? Let me just roll down the chat here. So Betsy's just saying that she's tried to get a copy of the Momento Pro software, but it's wanting her Mossman Camera Club membership number.
Oh, okay. If you don't have one, that's okay. It's our way of checking that you're legit. All you need to do...
She just made up a number.
Well, and that would have worked. That would have worked. It was actually introduced mainly for students who have student numbers.
Yep.
But yeah, don't worry. Do you have the Momento Pro software, or you've been approved for a Momento Pro account, Rosie?
I'll just hang on. I'll just unmute. I'll unmute you,
How
Betsy.
about I explain?
Have another go, Betsy.
I've made books, but
Yeah.
I never knew about Momento Pro. So I would have liked to have had more freedom in what I was doing, but I've never had it. So I thought I'd try to apply for it.
Yep. Okay. I should mention, so yes, of course, you guys all have access or are invited to join our Momento Pro service. That gives you those extra discounts. If by chance you already happen to be a member of Momento.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so in that instance, you can't do it online. You just need to give us a call and tell us. If you are not signed up to Momento and you want to join Momento Pro as part of the Mossman Camera Club, just go online to this page. We have a registration page where it asks you for which club you're from, and then of course your number. So you can do it all online if you are not an existing member of Momento. If you are a member of Memento, just call us and we'll have to do it manually behind the scenes. Basically what happens is we contact, I imagine it's you, Tim, to say such and such has applied. Are they really a legit member of your club?
That's right. Just don't give anything to Peter Hammer.
Oh, okay, noted. Peter Hammer. Okay. So yeah, sorry about that, Rosie. So do you actually need to be upgraded to Momento Pro now?
Who? Me? Betsy?
Yeah, Betsy.
Oh, sorry, Betsy. Yeah, Betsy.
Well,
Yes, I'd like to be, because I'm trying to make a book.
All right. Can you just tell me your last name and I'll look you up in the system and make sure somebody contacts you?
It's Betsy Conti, C-O-N-T-I.
C-O-N-T-I. Okay, I'll get somebody to call you tomorrow, hopefully. And if not, please just call. If you don't hear from them in the next day, either I've forgotten or they're really busy, but I have noted it down.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no problems.
All right, well, rather than take up all your evening, why don't we let you go? It's 9:30, but thank you very much. I think everyone's, I've had a couple of people who've had to go early and they've said, please give Libby our thanks. Fantastic night.
Oh, good.
So thank you. So
my pleasure, and I hope you've been inspired. And like I say, if you have any questions, well, there's lots of information on the website, but our customer service team are available on the phone.
And I've got all those samples. So once we come out of lockdown, I've got all the sample pack.
Yep.
And I'll be able to show the members the samples of the papers and everything else. But
cool.
I think there's a part of the portfolio program I think will be of interest, your product. And what's a production time? So if they're thinking about timeframes and that. So
standard turnaround time is 14 days for most books. Jeff, it's a leather's 41.
No,
21.
Yeah,
so we have some of the more kind of premium options like inkjet printing and leather covers require an extra week, but 14 days is standard.
Covers most things. All right, yep. Fantastic.
And hey, Tim, I also will make sure that I speak to you and to Suzanne about the Mossman Photography Awards. Make sure we get that sorted out because I can't remember off the top of my head what we agreed to. And the other thing is, like I say, later in the year when we are free, if you'd like to organise a tour of the facility,
that'd be great.
Because you're Sydney based, we could do that.
Yeah, I did a tour.
A weekday, or is a weekend all right too?
No, weekday work hours. So if you want to see the production team in action, they work from 8 until 4.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did a tour in 2015 when I was doing the TAFE diploma course, and it was really, really interesting.
It's a beautiful thing to see. I mean,
It
they
is.
really do. We have a lovely, and I can't take any credit for it whatsoever, but we have a really lovely balance of, you know, the latest technology in terms of the printers, but then it's old school binding techniques as much as, I mean, we have to be economical, and we're producing in Australia. It's very hard to compete with Blurb, Michael. But we have to try and keep, you know, there's hands-on elements, and then there is, you know, the automated machinery, but we're still a lot more hands-on than most, and unlike almost every other photo book company, I think probably even in the world, every page for a print-on-demand book, every page is checked by a human being.
I think what I might do, Libby, is now put together a proof of a book, in a quick one in Blurb, and all organised, and then be able to redo it in good form in Momento.
Okay, sure. There you go. You've kind of got your proof copy, and then you've got your premium copy.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah. But thank you. I've enjoyed it too, and I hope, you know, that was this is a new experience for me. I've only hosted one webinar last week. That was our first, and this is my first time being a presenter on Zoom, and it's been very enjoyable. But if you want, we are going to be hosting more regularly webinars, so keep your eye on our newsletters and events page.
Yep. And for those who haven't come across Les Walkley, then it's a very interesting listening to him talk, and what you thought you knew about colour will be turned upside down. But you'll have to hear him about 3 or 4 times to understand him.
Timothy, I couldn't agree more. The other thing that's on that same webpage where I showed you on the events page, I've put a list of a few webinar series that are happening. There's an amazing one happening right now by, it comes out of London, but it's called Self-Publish, Be Happy. And just like I stepped through every phase, like editing, sequence, design, you know, those steps, they're doing a webinar on each step. So if you're interested in that, check out that events page, and I've got our events at the top, our webinars and events at the top, and then down the bottom of the page are other people's webinar series.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Libby.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks, Libby.
Enjoy.
Good night. Thank you.
We'll speak soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks now.
See ya.
Cue secret hand.
See ya.
Thanks, Libby.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Libby.
Jeff says thanks, and Cosmo
Thanks,
says
Libby.
bye too, the cat. Bye.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Thanks, Libby.
Night, everyone.